welcome Peter Edwards, Supply Chain Director, Arkema.
Just wait a while. And the big fish in the pond.
Good afternoon. I was told when I was joking around with our hosts for today that when they started planning the agenda, I was originally at 9:45. And slowly but surely, I was at 11:15. And then I was at 11:45. And then I was at 1:30. And now I'm at 4. And I was told that the reason being is that they saved the last slot for the most famous and the most dynamic. I'm hoping that you're here, because I'm not famous, I don't know how dynamic I'll be, but I'm hoping that you're here just out of curiosity. So what I'm going to talk about for the next 20, 30 minutes or so is what I learned from the jury box. And just so that there is no misconception, I am literally talking about a jury box. My seat was the third from the left in the first row. So show of hands, this is going to be participative. Okay, show of hands. How many here consider themselves to be a supply chain professional? There's a bunch of people here that need to turn their badges in before they leave today. Everybody should have their hand up. Okay, keeping your hands up, how many people here consider themselves to be a pretty good supply chain professional and have good processes and procedures in place for your business endeavor? Okay. Now, how many people think that supply chain excellence can be invented and, more importantly, executed by somebody with a 9th grade education? Not so many people agree with that statement. Our journey this afternoon is going to take you literally to the juror box of U.S. District Court right here in Philadelphia and highlight what I learned in a real-life prosecution of a businessman who ran a very efficient supply chain, happened to be in the distribution of cocaine. Okay? Stop laughing. This is serious. Okay? This is good stuff. Okay, so the question, how much money do you think a regional, and what I mean regional, Northeast Philadelphia, supply chain manager for cocaine distribution brings in a 1-month period? $500,000? $2 to $4 million a month cash. And 20 to 30% of that you get to keep. How many people think they're underpaid? Okay. How many people want the job of the next supply chain director for Cocaine MS? I see laughter, I see no hands. Okay, Officer McDaniel, you can leave. There's nobody here for you right now. Okay, cocaine distribution is a high-risk profession. The mentor of this story, we're going to call him Joe, is currently serving life to 30 years in federal prison. This is not his first go-around, okay? And he's not the nicest guy. But as the lead prosecutor said in her opening statement, that Joe was a very astute and successful businessman who ran a very efficient supply chain. All right, she didn't say the supply chain part, that was my idea. But that's how I kept myself excited for 3 weeks of my life during this prosecution, okay? Got to read a disclaimer. Okay, my company, Elemica, the Chemical Heritage Foundation, the City of Philadelphia, the Philadelphia PD, the U.S. Office of the DEA, the great state of the United States of America, and of course myself, absolutely and without question, strongly discourage and in fact will actively prosecute anybody with illegal activities involving cocaine, blah, 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 and we will prosecute you to the full extent of the law. Anything presented here is only for a business model and not for illegal activities. Okay, my lawyer made me put that in. Okay, so question. This is participative again. What are some key, critically important elements for supply chain excellence? Distribution. Inventory. Demands. Cash flow. Logistics. Okay, covered a lot of these. During the trial, there were elements of all these process excellence models that we struggle with every day that Joe was using in his distribution of cocaine. And so what I'm going to do is just kind of take you down memory lane for me a little bit and kind of give you some highlights of what I learned over those 3 weeks. Supply chain model. Why are drug dealers called pushers? They push drugs. That's right. They use a push versus a supply chain model. Okay, I don't make this stuff up. This is really their world. So from a supply chain model standpoint, if you look at the push model, when do we want to use a push model to be effective? Okay, if it's a commodity-driven business. If there's very limited product differentiation to maximize upstream manufacturing opportunities and to control demand. If you look at the pull model, it's more specially driven, high differentiation, customer specifications, trying to optimize a product cycle throughout a production wheel on a common asset, and inventory management. Where does cocaine distribution fit in this? Clearly in the push model. And in fact, in cocaine distribution, the pull model with inventory, okay, that's the last thing they want. Okay, from us, the way we sit in this room, we look at inventory as working capital. In the cocaine distribution world, they look at inventory as risk. It invites theft, and it invites the DEA. But the key thing is when you look at push versus pull, is what is the best model for your business? And not no two businesses are created equal, right? So what's good for my business may be exactly the opposite of what you want. Okay, when you look at supply chain model, again, there's lots of different ways that you can approach inventory and production manufacturing management. But to me, it breaks down into 4 key buckets. You have make to stock, make to order, assemble to order, and package to order. Okay, so package to order, if you think about the prescription drug mail-in, how many people have switched over to prescription drug by mail? With their, yeah, okay, pain in the neck, right? It's a lot easier to go to the pharmacy and get your stuff, right? Well, it's really a package to order. They're collecting all the orders, they're shipping out small samples, but they're buying in bulk. And so there is a cost-benefit analysis for a cost-benefit for that particular distributor. Assemble to order, that's your typical Dell computer model, right? You go on there online, you spec out what components you want on your computer, they build it and they send it to you. Make to order, to me this is our favorite hoagie shop, okay? Small, specialized production, making to a customer specification of what you want on your hoagie, or your sub, or po' boy. How many people know what a po' boy is? Okay, all right, we got a couple of people from the South. Okay, make to stock is typically what we think of when we manufacture and we put stuff into a warehouse. Okay, cocaine distribution is make to stock. You provide it, and people will come. So again, the key question is what is the best model that fits your particular business need? Let's talk about inventory management. Lot control and late traceability. How many people have lot control and late traceability? Lot traceability, okay. What we mean by this is are we assigning a batch? Do we lot control? Do we assign a specific specifications and analytical results on a certificate of analysis and provide that to our customers? Is there lot traceability throughout the supply chain? So from the receipt of raw materials all the way through manufacturing into the finished good and ultimately to the customer. And do we have expiration dates? Very typical in the pharma industry, the food industry, but in the chemical industry as well. Okay. In the cocaine industry, bricks of cocaine, and a brick is roughly 1 kilogram of cocaine, have unique identifying markings. Those markings designate not only who provided the cocaine, but what batch of cocaine it was from. And there was actually evidence presented in open court that suggested that there was a brick of cocaine that was supplied by Joe that was underweight. Well, when you're buying cocaine at $3,500 a kilo, being underweight is a big deal. Joe was able to trace back the brick that was sold to him as underweight 3 people before him through the supply chain by lot traceability. 9th grade education. Again, when you look at inventory management, packaging is very important. How many packages do you really need to meet your customer requirements? Not how many you have, but how many do you need to support your customers' requirements? And what is the best package for your individual product? The world of cocaine, the upper right-hand corner, you can see there's lots of different packages that you find at your ultimate customer. Okay, they're buying small quantities. The bricks of cocaine in the lower right, you can see that they are packaged different ways. This was not so much for product differentiation. It was not so much making it look better for the ultimate consumer. This was packaged to try to keep the DEA and their drug-sniffing dogs away from their cocaine. So let's try to package it this way versus that way. Let's try to package it with coffee. Let's try to double wrap it with cellophane. So they had a lot of ingenuity in their packaging. But at the end of the day is, for your particular business, or for Joe's business, what was the right type of packaging for his distribution network? Inventory control. Detailed records by batch and by location. How many people use SAP or Oracle or JD Edwards? How many people use warehouse management? Okay? Detailed record. Where is your inventory? How much do I have? Very critical from a supply chain management perspective. Chain of custody. Anybody deal with anything where they need a chain of custody? Okay, a couple of hands. Okay. Shipment history. Who buys it? When did they get it? Who did you sell it to? When did they get it? High-value material warehouses may be monitored by security cameras. Joe thought this was a pretty good idea. He not only had security cameras outside of his warehouse, he had them inside of his warehouse to monitor his people to make sure that they weren't stealing from him. Great idea. The DEA thought it was a really good idea too. An off-grade quarantine product and the write-off procedure. Okay, there was, again, actual evidence presented in open court where there was some cocaine that was cooked down to coke and it discolored. I didn't know that it discolored, but apparently it discolors if it's not of high quality. And it was returned for credit. Who would have thought? Cocaine distribution has all 5 of those elements. It was amazing. Reverse logistics. How many people have a good reverse logistics process? Return authorization procedure. They know exactly what carrier they're going to use and how they're going to route the material and how you're going to credit and reimburse people. Okay. What is your process and is it robust? Okay. Joe had a reverse logistics, I mean, as crazy as it sounds. Quality management. Do you require a receipt or a sample for your inbound raw materials? What is your sample retain policy? Do you have a first in, first out policy to manage shelf life? How is your quality management system reporting on your quality of your manufacturing? What is your process and is it robust? And more importantly, is it providing value to your customers? We're not really going to go there because in reality, the best quality manager in a cocaine distribution network usually becomes Joe's best client, so they're very short-lived. Supply risk and risk management. Where are your supply risks and what margin of your supply chain is at risk through your entire chain from beginning to end? Are you single or sole source supplied? And is that put significant margin at risk? Is your source of supply foreign or domestic? And how does that weigh into the overall risk management profile? Logistics, routing, and assessment, and social responsibility of your suppliers. Okay. For cocaine distribution, I'll give Joe 3 out of 4. I'm not going to give him social responsibility. I just can't. But interestingly enough, Joe actually went through this, and he was single source supply from a guy in Mexico. And I guess his Mexican supplier was having difficulty keeping up with his demand. So he got this great idea, said, hey, I'm going to go find myself another supplier. And he found one. And then he started to think about it, and he realized that, hey, having 2 people that knew who he was versus 1 put himself at greater risk. And he actually went back. And he fired 1 supplier and became single sourced or sole sourced again. But the key thing is understanding what your risk is for your business and making sure that you're making the right decisions for your business entity. Distribution network. How do you manage post-manufacturing logistics? Do you ship directly from the plant to your end customer? Do you use a hub and spoke model or regional warehousing? Are you shipping in bulk truckloads, full truckloads, or an LTL model? And have you really, especially with some of the things we heard this morning with logistics, have you assessed the robustness of your overall carrier program? Who are you partnered with? Do they have the capacity to meet today's needs and your future needs? Are you partnered with the right types of carriers for your business? So what is your process for understanding and analyzing your distribution network? Is it meeting the needs of your customers? Does it allow you to help manage your total working capital? And at the end of the day, is it cost effective? Business rules to serve. My favorite one in supply chain management world that I live in is lead time. But you've got available to promise. Customer services, what types of packages, special labels, special fill heights that we've got to manage. Pricing management and payment terms. Okay. And when you look at the complexity of your rules to serve, do your business rules best support your supply chain process? Or does your supply chain process best support your business rules to serve that you advertise to your customers? And then one of the things I'd like to do is look at which rules are driving chaos within the supply chain organization. Which are the ones that are causing me the most headache? Because if I can eliminate those headaches, my life is easier. So which ones are driving chaos within the supply chain organization? And then what can I do in working with my colleagues to try to smooth out that chaos? Interestingly enough, cocaine distribution deals with the same issues. And they have business meetings. And they talk about these issues. And the DEA learns of these issues and they exploit them. Okay? Consignment is one subset of a business rule or a service rule, right? Is consignment good or is it evil? And it really depends on your perspective. Is it giving you a competitive advantage? And if you think it is, why is it giving you that competitive advantage? Are you the single source supplier? I would argue that if you're not, consignment may not be the best model for you. And at the end of the day, is the consignment model the best use of your working capital? Remember, you're taking your inventory, you're putting it at a site for a specific customer and giving them whatever terms on that inventory. So is it the best use of your working capital? So is it right for you and is it right for your business? And if you do decide to go down the road of consignment, do you have the right rules in place to make it work for your business? And Joe, and actually the cocaine distribution world, they use consignment from the point of production, all the way to the street. That entire supply chain is on consignment, and money doesn't start flowing back until they make a street sale to, the junkie on the corner. 100% consignment. How do you qualify your customers? Are there specific product stewardship issues that you need to be aware of? What are the downstream applications? What is your customer doing from a social responsibility standpoint, and is that important to you and to your business? Are they creditworthy? Is there a cross-business synergy with your customers that you want to factor into play? Again, so what is your process, and is it robust? From a cocaine distribution standpoint, I'll give them 4 out of 5. I refuse to give them the social responsibility piece. But they talk about this element in their business meetings. The DEA has it on tape, okay? And they fire customers. They fire them differently than you or I may fire customers, okay? But they fire customers. They also look at until you get to the point of actually selling it on the street, there's actually a very complicated process that they go through to qualify who they're going to sell bulk quantities of material to. Bulk quantities could be 10, 15, 20 kilograms of cocaine at a time. Because if you remember, there's risk. And risk to a cocaine distribution equals freedom. Right? Low risk, lots of freedom. High risk, probably jail time. Okay? So they're very careful about who they interact with, why they interact with them, where they interact with them. But at the end of the day, the customers of the cocaine distribution center end up in the hands of 2 of our most qualified customer service care representatives, right? Value pricing. How do you differentiate yourself by value pricing? What is your competition doing? And is this a topic in your business meetings? Okay, again, over plates of spaghetti or whatever those guys are doing during their business meetings, they're talking about value pricing. They can tell you exactly what the next guy in the next town is doing with regards to pricing. They know how much a kilo of cocaine is going for in the open market. They know if they buy 100 or 200 at a time, they know if there's going to get a price break because that's what Sam got down the road. It's amazing. And the bad part is that they document all this stuff. But in cocaine distribution, yes, all 3 of those things they're talking about on a fairly frequent basis. What are we doing? My favorite, the P&L statement. Do I really understand how our actions directly correlate to our financial statement? Do you really understand what your P&L statement is? Cocaine distribution world, we saw pages and pages and pages, I mean literally a book, of ledgers, of what did Joe buy from who, how much did he owe, what happened to each one of those lots. And the funny thing was is that he archived all this stuff in a safe in his warehouse. But yet everybody in Joe's organization knew exactly the role that they played in that P&L statement. They knew that, hey, if I didn't collect money from so-and-so for Joe, that was going to impact what Joe was going to be able to do for me next month. And I wasn't going to get my cut of whatever the next load or next shipment was. And we heard testimony from person after person after person. And you want to talk about alignment in an organization? There was alignment. But the biggest challenge, okay, remember you're collecting $2 to $4 million a month, is how do you move all that cash? It's not like you put it in a bank and wire transfer money, right? So you've got a tremendous high risk moving product goods to your customer, and then you've got the same amount of risk moving that cash back to your suppliers. Okay? City of Philadelphia has 2 of the largest cash busts in the Mid-Atlantic region. One was $1.8 million, and the other was $2.4 million. You know whose money that was? Joe's. And you know what? That did not put him out of business. What put him out of business was the DEA agents. So, metrics and benchmarking. What do you measure, and how do you stack up to your peers in your competition? Do you measure what's important? And more importantly, do you measure what's important to your customers? And do you perform your customer expectations? So what's on your scorecard, and does it drive results? How do you treat your customers? The thing that it was kind of funny for me is regardless of how Joe treated his customers and how much he threatened their family, they were always happy to see him. Okay? So, I mean, at the end of the day, that's kind of like the ultimate satisfaction survey, but is that really how we want to be treating our customers, right? I think we want to use a little gentler, kindler approach. So from a supply chain model, here's my top 10. Understanding your supply chain model. Do you want to use a push versus a pull? How do you want to manage inventory and control that inventory? Understanding the risk to your supply base and that of your distribution network. Making sure that you have good, solid business rules to serve. And I always like to throw in consignment because the business guys love consignment, at least the sellers love consignment. From a supply chain standpoint, it complicates my life. I want to make sure that it's really a sound business tool. Customer qualification, value pricing, understanding the role that we have with P&L, and metrics and benchmarking with keeping in mind that what you measure is what you get. So making sure that you set up the right metrics so that at the end of the day, you get what you really want. So my 3 life lessons for you to take away. Embrace jury service, okay? It's your civic duty, okay? But you never know what you might learn, okay? 2, every business has a supply chain model, but make sure that your supply chain model fits your business for your customers. And lastly, where are you going to look for your next supply chain innovation? I found some in cocaine distribution, but where are you going to look for your next supply chain innovation? That's what I have.